Welcome everyone to Unsheathed Sword Reviews. I'm Vic.
And I'm John.
And today we're going to give you our official review of the Tod Cutler Clip Point Falchion. So, we've reviewed a few Tod Cutler swords, haven't we, John?
We have. It would seem that we're sort of the subject matter experts on the matter, which is kind of ridiculous. But yeah, we've run across a few lately, haven't we?
We definitely have. If you haven't checked out our review of the Grosses Messer and the Type 14 Arming Sword.
Yeah.
And so now we have the one that I was really excited when the first batch came out. Well, before we do that, you want to talk about real quick what Tod Cutler, what the line is?
Yeah, definitely. So Todd Cutler, as most of you probably know if you're watching this channel, is just a really cool guy in the medieval community. Let's just put it that way, medieval and Renaissance community. He's got a really amazing YouTube page where he does everything from shooting historically accurate arrows at armor to check penetration, to shooting things with trebuchets, to designing armor, recreating pieces of armor from the museum and testing out to see how they work. He's really interesting and an excellent guy to check out. So if you're watching this video and you haven't checked him out, you should definitely get on that.
His channel will be linked in the description. He recently posted a video about medieval fire arrows, which was so freaking cool. Yeah. Go watch that video after this.
Like literally, he just has his friends come over who happen to be like literally classically trained English bowmen who can like literally shoot a 210-pound yew bow that would like break my arm if I tried to shoot it. And he's like, "Oh yeah, you just want to come over and shoot some fire arrows?" And he's like, "Sure, why not?" So yeah, no, it's a very entertaining YouTube channel. And in addition to that, he forges one-for-one recreations of historical swords found in various collections and things like that. His work is amazing, and allegedly a lot of people think he's the best at creating a one-for-one replica of a piece that he has in his hand. But the issue is that those swords cost in the thousands to multiple thousands of dollars.
Dollar.
And like, as much as we got some high-end swords, we don't have any high-end swords like that. And probably we never will.
That is an order of magnitude above what I'm willing to spend on a sword.
Yeah, for sure. And I know the first thing I would do is hit the stand with it and take a chunk.
And then I would cry.
And then myself. Exactly. So yeah, the purpose of this line of swords is to bring that stylistic quality that he brings, where he takes really good one-for-one replicas of probable or possible swords and then sell them at a reasonable price by outsourcing the forging to a forge in India. Yep. So yeah, that's what these pieces are individually, and this is the third one we reviewed. Yep.
And so the price point of this is $680 before shipping and all that. Out the door shipping here to the US, it's just above $800. However, I did not get this sword at that price.
Which seems to be a theme lately.
Yeah. And what is a really cool reverse fortune of fate or whatever. If you watch the Arming Sword video, you'll know that John actually picked that sword up for $450 off SBG, Sword Buyer's Guide Forum. I got the Tod Cutler Falchion, for exactly the same price. I got it for $450.
From exactly the same place too, right?
Yeah, from the SBG forum. Different seller, of course, but still, it was funny. Like, again, it was posted, it dropped. And once it dropped to $450, I was just like, all right, well, now just for the sake of symmetry, I have to do it.
Right, clearly the universe is speaking to us here.
And like I was starting to say, this and the Messer were the two that I was really interested in when the line first launched. It launched with 4 swords. There's 2 additional ones now. But I'm a big fan of falchions and Messers and this style of falchion. So falchions and Messers, if you don't know, share a typology, the Elmsley typology, where the blades are pretty much interchangeable, and the real defining characteristic of the swords is the hilts.
Right. If it's on a scaled handle, then it's probably a Messer, and if it's on a typical cruciform hilt, it's a falchion.
Right. And so there are some oddities here and there, but that's a general rule of thumb that's pretty good to follow. So I really wanted this falchion because it is my favorite type. It is an F3C?
F3C.
Yeah. F3C, which I believe is the same type of blade that is on the Messer, but this is just a much bigger, broader, longer example, and it looks really cool.
And to be clear, it's not listed anywhere by Todd as being an F4C. So that is just our take on it. And if you know more about the Elmsley typology than we do, which is probable,
very likely.
Sign off in the comments and let us know what you think.
Right.
Yeah.
So we're going to start a little different than what we normally do. Usually we start with fit and finish. However, we're going to change it up a little bit moving forward, and we're going to start with aesthetics. Right, yes, John?
Absolutely.
So what do you think of this sword aesthetically?
Aesthetically, I think it reminds me very much of the other cruciform hilt Tod Cutler piece that we've looked at. I feel like it's, to me, to look at the aesthetics of a sword, you have to set, like, what are they setting out to do with this, and how well do they accomplish that thing? Purely talking about looks. The other stuff fits into function and all that, and that's important too. But just in terms of aesthetics, I think it's like, how well did they accomplish what they were setting out to accomplish? And to me, what the Tod Cutler line is trying to set out to accomplish is a well-constructed, not terribly refined, but not unrefined, workmanlike utilitarian look. And to me, I think that both on this and on the Army Sword, they knock it out of the park. I think it's not Albion level fit and finish. You're also not paying for Albion level fit and finish, but it is good fit and finish. And I think to me, it speaks to my aesthetic tastes quite a bit. I think they went for something that I appreciate, and they did a really good job on it.
Yeah,
what do you think, Vic?
I agree. So purely aesthetics, before I talk about fit and finish stuff, I think the sword looks badass. Like, there's no other way to word that. Like, not even getting to the blade yet, I really, really like the hilts. And this is one of those weird situations where, like, I saw pictures of it online, and I liked it. I wasn't, like, in love with it. But then I got it in person, and to me, it looks so much better in person than it does in photos.
I have to say I was in the same boat with that, because you wanted this sword from the beginning because you like this blade type. This might be my least favorite Falchion blade type, or at least I thought it was until I saw it in person. And I love it. So yeah, I think it could change your mind.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So the hilts, the pommel is one of the things that I thought I wouldn't like, but in person looks really, really cool. It is a big, meaty pommel, and it has like the decorative like flares there that come out in the center. Again, adding more mass to the pommel for balance, we'll talk about later, but also just aesthetically looks really, really cool and unique. The grip is well done, has 5 risers spread out throughout, and the crossguard is well shaped, nice curve to it. I like the hilt a lot, but I love the blade. The blade looks fantastic. Again, this is my favorite type of falchion, and I think this is a really, really well done example. It has a gorgeous looking fuller that's pretty even and terminates on both sides, has a false edge, and the clip is wicked looking. Like, literally, it's so broad at the belly, it almost doesn't fit in my sword rack. Like, I have to wedge it in there, and it's like off-centered a little bit. Like, but this is a very visually striking sword. And in terms of pure aesthetics, I think it looks badass.
Yeah, and another thing I would say, that if you were to get to the root of my aesthetic taste, it's that form follows function. Okay, and to me, I agree with Victor. I like the look of the pommel. I especially like the look of the pommel once I picked the sword up and I realized the reason this is a beefy, crazy pommel like it is to balance out this blade. So that's getting into function, but to me, that's the aesthetic too. The aesthetic is like this looks like what it needs to look like to be an effective sword, and then they made it prettier than it needs to be on top of that. So yeah, I'm in love with the aesthetics of the sword.
And I did get a comment somewhere, apologies, I forget your name, but they asked me about the Tod Cutler line because they were interested in the Army Sword, and then they saw the pictures I posted of the Falchion, and they said that the thing they're hoping to get out of the line was, does Todd's expertise of the sword translate into the sword itself? And
that's a great question.
You're right. And I gave him a really quick synopsis on, I think it was on Facebook, where he asked me that. I hope you're watching, because we're going to dive into that a lot right now.
Yes.
So on the fit and finish, real quick, I think the fit and finish is very solid. It is about the same level as the Army sword and the Messer. Yeah. So the peen is good. You can see that it's there. You can get a little bit of a fingernail on it. Not too bad. The grip is very well done. There is one spot way at the bottom, kind of where the pommel's terminating, where at the seam, it's kind of raised just a little bit, and like you can clip it with your fingernail. If you really wanted to work that, you could probably start to peel it. In use, gripping it, don't feel it at all, nor do you feel the seam, and the seam is straight and thin. It looks really, really good. Gap in the crossguard, not bad at all, especially for the price points. I think it's perfectly fine. The blade itself, mirror polish, you like that or you don't. I like it. That said, though, it is taking scuffs and scratches already. But yeah, fit and finish, I think is good for the money.
Yeah, I agree with everything Vic just said. The part of the fit and finish I like the most, I think, is the handle. And I think that the handle on this I prefer to the handle on the Army Sword, even though they're quite similar. I definitely like the way the risers are lined up on this. You have triple risers in the middle, and then one at the top and one at the bottom. And for what that does for me is it helps me know exactly where it is in my hand. Whereas on the Arming Sword, there are, I think, 5 evenly spaced risers across. So it's not quite as good. You can still index because the blade has a nice oval shape, as does this one. It's an excellent index blade. But what it doesn't do is it doesn't give you the north-south orientation on the handle quite as well, just because you don't know which one you're touching. But with these 3, you can feel 3 in a row and you know where your hand is.
And on top of that, for me personally, I like the aesthetics of this better. I like the risers in the middle and then one on the top and south. I don't like them evenly spread out. That just looks weird to me.
I tend to agree. I like the handle on this one better than I like the Army Sword handle, but I like them both. So, it's completely fine. And I didn't even notice that part come off on the bottom, so good eye.
So yeah, we like the look of it. We think the fit and finish is good. Handling. John, what did you think?
Okay, so this sword is not a light sword. It's listed at 2 pounds 9 ounces, and when we weighed it, it was right around 2 pounds 8 ounces, 2 pounds 7.9 ounces, I think. So this is not a light sword for a strictly one-handed sword, okay? And you feel that when you pick it up, okay? And you pick it up. If you just pick it up and hold it blade down, you're like, wow, this is it's got some mass to it, right? Mm-hmm. But then when you flip the blade up and you feel the counterbalance on this pommel. It's almost like magic. It's hard for me to explain how my brain can't understand how a blade as thick and beefy as that is feels as wieldy and redirectable as this does. I am floored by the handling on this sword. I just and a thing to note, maybe should have mentioned it in the fit and finish part also. The blade is ordered sharp. It was ordered sharp from Todd Cutler. And what that means is that it's got a good edge profile and it's relatively sharp, but it needs to be it needs to be fined and even to be made finer. And even with the blade the way it is now, I can pull off amazing, solid, straight cuts beautifully. It just knocks the bottle off because it's not quite sharp enough to cut it standing.
Agreed. If you did, I wouldn't want to be hit by it as it is.
No, thank you. No, thank you.
But if you did get it sharp, I will get the sharpened in the same place I took the messer to get sharpened. Yeah. At that point, this is going to be an insane monster. You're going to pull off, I bet you, clean standing bottle cut after clean standing bottle cut.
Which is ridiculous because of the amount of mass that this thing has behind it. Yeah.
So it's crazy to me. So we're fortunate enough to own Angus trim falchions. We each own one. And we know that with most Angus trim swords, they're probably going to be on the lighter end of the spectrum and on the more agile end of the spectrum. And I think that is definitely the case for both of those falchions.
Absolutely. And it's to the point where my falchion, this F4C2 that I have from him, he actually calls a saber.
Yeah.
He's like, there were 2 pommel options and I chose the one that made it feel more like a saber. And I was like, sorry, I support this.
Yes. This, however, like John said, you pick it up and then once you start moving it, this is exactly what I thought a falchion would feel like before I owned one. Absolutely. This, the presence that it has, the authority that it has. But like John said, once you start moving it, it's almost jaw-dropping. It is very redirectable. I mean, again, it has authority and it does carry you, but you can redirect it. You can pull off multiple cuts. You could really move this sword. And the thing that I was a little, taken back by right away before I actually cut with it was, I expected there to be more distal taper because if you look at the spine on the messer that I have, it starts pretty thick. It starts over 6 millimeters and tapers down to just under 3, I believe. Mm-hmm. This is pretty thin. This actually started out at right around 5 millimeters and then doesn't lose a whole lot of mass, stays to about 4.1 right here where the false edge starts. And then at the top, we had it at 2.9. Now, looking up other falchions and looking up the historical examples, that is perfectly in line with what they are supposed to be. And it's just kind of jaw-dropping because that doesn't sound like a lot of distal taper on paper. It's not heavy, but it's a heavier sword than we're used to for most of our one-handed swords on paper.
A one-handed sword. Yeah.
And this is a thing where looking at the specs on paper, I thought it was going to be one thing, and then once you start moving it, it's completely different. This is a monster in the best possible way.
Agreed. To me, this is a surprise with how it looks and how the numbers look to see how wieldable it is. Mm-hmm. It really surprised the hell out of me. So
yeah, it's really fun. It's a beefy monster. So all that said, aesthetics, really like the look that they were going for. I think they nailed it. Fit and finish, I think, is really good for the price point. Handling is kind of jaw-dropping, especially if you've never handled anything like it. And goddamn, does it look good on the wall. Yeah. And it comes with a dope scabbard.
That is a solid point. We almost forgot about that.
Literally, I was about to wrap up, and then I saw the scabbard. John, would you like to talk about it for a second?
Yeah. So, in a lot of ways, it's very similar to the scabbard that came with the arming sword, which makes sense because they're roughly concurrent with each other. So it's a very similar style, but it has a very nice, thick, robust belt. The clips on it, we'll give you some close-ups of those. They're really nice. They're heavy. They feel substantial. They click together very nicely. And I'll say exactly the same thing I said about the other sword, is that if you wanted to go to a Ren fair or something, you would be very happy to have this sword. It would look great. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think, the shape is gorgeous. There's nothing bad about the scabbard at all.
And again, like we said about the other ones, period accurate, which goes a long way for people like us. We really like that.
Absolutely, yeah. And so, with all that said, okay, it's pretty obvious we think it's a good sword. So is it worth it obviously it's worth it at $450.
Yeah, it's a steal at $450, yes.
But at $680 plus shipping, it's probably going to be about $800 by the time it gets to your door. And then if you want to get it sharpened, it's probably going to cost you a little more than that. Mm-hmm. So with all that said, do you think it's worth it?
Absolutely, and I do for a couple of reasons. More so than the other two that we looked at. there's not a whole lot of examples specifically of this type of Falchion on the market. There's a lot of other good messers that you could look at. Even more so with the Type 14 Arming Swords.
Yep.
There's not a whole lot that look like this. Really, you got the Albion Vassal, which is significantly more expensive. It doesn't come with the Scabbard. Would be a better fit and finish, though. That's about it. Like, when this used to make a Falchion that kind of looked like this, I don't think that's, like, in production anymore.
No.
Aside from that, there's not a whole lot of options out there. And while this is kind of expensive, and there's a solid argument to be made that at $800, maybe the fit and finish isn't as good as it should be. I don't agree, but I could hear that argument for sure.
Sure. Okay.
I think this is an absolute buy. Again, my favorite type of Falchion. It looks unique. There's not a whole lot of stuff like it on the market. And like, again, you get the Todd Cutler sword expertise in the handling of this. And that is the major selling point for me. This is a beast of a sword in the best possible way. And I think it's worth it even at $800 out the door.
I completely agree with everything Vic just said. This sword, it changed my mind. First of all, I want to say that because I was expecting to be like, okay, we're going to get a Tod Cutler level sword that's going to be fine, but I'm just not going to like it very much because I don't like this particular style of falchion blade. Spoiler alert, I actually like it a real lot. So yeah, I think we said something along the lines of like there probably isn't much of a better package for around $800 out the door in terms of a really good functioning sword, well-functioning sword that is historically accurate, that comes with a scabbard. And I think I echo the same points with this. I don't know how you do better for $800 out the door.
Agreed. Strongly agree.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's all I got. Keep an eye out on the channel. Like we mentioned in the previous videos, we are going to be posting polls to see what swords from the current batch of reviews that we have filmed that you would like to see. We want to hear your voices. If you have any comments, any questions like that, sound off in the comments and let us know.
Absolutely. And also, like the question that user asked that we didn't write his name down, unfortunately, or their name down.
I will post it on the screen. I will find it.
We'll bring it up. But, I mean, that question stimulated a whole conversation with us, and like it was very helpful and we really appreciate it. So I mean, if you have questions about these swords or you have something that you want us to kick around, we're more than happy to do it. So please just sound off in the comments, and we respond to almost every comment we get.
Right.
So
yeah,
absolutely,
that's everything I got.
That's all I got.
All right, hey guys, thanks for watching this episode of Unsheathed Reviews. If you enjoyed, be sure to like, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications. Peace.